Hello and welcome to today's Learning Media Web Conference. This is Fast Track Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations Enterprise Edition Tech Talk. Today's topic, how to upgrade to 7.2 from 7.0 or 7.1. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Senior R&D Solution Architect, Davey Vliegen. So without any further delay, Davey, over to you.
Thank you, and good afternoon, evening, or morning, depending on where you join today. So let's go straight to the agenda for today. So the agenda is specifically how to upgrade from the 7.0, the RTW release, the 7.1, which is also referred to as the release 1611, to the 7.2 release, which is also called now the July 2017 update, previously maybe sometimes referred to as the spring release. So for the agenda today, we first go quickly to look at an overview of the upgrade. Then we actually split the process in two different parts. I will first go to explain you how you can upgrade to the 7.2 release if you're a live customer or if you have production already deployed. The second part of the presentation, so the second process, is when you're not live yet, so you have an ongoing project and you don't have production deployed yet, which is a slightly different process. I will going to end the presentation with some considerations regarding financial reporting, or MR, and then some retail-specific considerations, which is really important to highlight. So it's important to mention that today's sessions is not about installing a new platform update, and it's also not, the session will not cover how to upgrade from AX 2012 or any other AX versions to the version 7.2 or the July 2017 update. These topics will be covered in separate sessions. So specifically for today, as you can see on my slide deck at the moment, if you're in the moment in the version 7.0, 7.01 or 1611 with application, and you go to the July 2017 update, or you plan to go to July 2017 update, then you are in the right session. So the first part of the presentation is how to upgrade if you're a live customer from version 7.0 and version 7.1 to the 7.2 release. For this, there is a specific overall wiki article, and in this wiki article covers several scenarios. And for this one, we specifically have to cover scenario 3. So let me go to this wiki article. So this wiki article is the process for moving to the latest update of finance and operations. And if you can see here, there are several scenarios. If you want to now upgrade to the latest application update, you have to go for scenario 3, upgrade to the most current application update. If you scroll down to scenario 3, then you can see that it consists out of 3 main parts, 4 maybe. The first one is upgrade code, the second is upgrade data, and then is upgrade sandbox, and finally upgrade of production. So let me now switch back to the presentation. So before actually you can start with upgrading your code, it's really important to highlight there is one additional prerequisite step, which is currently important to know and to install in your source environment prior to starting the upgrade. And that's highlighted here. It's the KB 402.3685 or the KB 402.3686. How do you know which one to install? First of all, everything is now up to date in the docs article. But if I go to my next slide, you can see that in the before you begin section, you can see that depending on the source version you have to install a separate KB. And this is important to run because this will update some sys setup logic that the upgrade framework needs to find out what is the exact version we are upgrading from. So it's really important to call this out. If you don't install this hotfix in your source environment, before you start the upgrade, you will run into issues. So if you're a live customer or a customer with already production deployed in a project phase, then you have to start with installing this hotfix in your dev box first, create a deployable package, and move this then in your UAT sandbox, and finally in your prod environment. The next step is then to start with the code upgrade. For this one, again, this is the same overview article than I just showed you. Remember, we were in scenario 3, but specifically for the first step, then the code upgrade, it refers to scenario 2 in the same article. So the question is then, is the code upgrade, is it mandatory? You could say, well, I don't have any customizations done, or I have everything done in an extension model. Is it still mandatory? We highly recommend. It's also as a mandatory prerequisite mentioned in the docs article to always run through the code upgrade service. So even if you have no customizations, for example, and you have standard Microsoft metadata or X++ hotfixes installed, for example, the code upgrade service process will remove this. So it's really important to have this one to run through the code upgrade service. So how to use the code upgrade service. Again, there is a specific wiki article or docs article that I highlight here, and there are two common issues that customers or partners run into. So first of all, the code upgrade service now has two options, actually two versions you can upgrade to. Previously, it was always upgrading to the latest one. Well, now you can decide if you want to upgrade to the 16.11 release or to the July 2017 release. So it's really important, because the default is the 16.11, that you switch to the July edition. The second important point to highlight is that there is an AX7.version file, which you should also source control, and which should have the exact of the correct application build number in. Common mistake we see here is that customers put in the binary build number, for example. So we really need here the application build number. Both of these things that I highlight here, it's specifically also the AX7.version file, is all mentioned in detail in this docs article. So once you have run your code through the code upgrade service, you will have your upgraded code in a separate release branch. So the next step is you deploy a new development box, which is a tier 1 July 2017, version 7.2. I mentioned here still platform update 8, although we released a couple of days ago platform update 9. So it's one of the latest and the greatest you install here for the July 2017 edition. And then you have to complete the regular code migration step, similar than also for previous upgrades. So you have to resolve conflicts. And the last step, you can decide to do that already here, or you can do that later, is to merge the VSTS branches. When your upgrade is completely finished and you have a successful build, then you could merge your VSTS branches. Maybe you want to install already any post-July 2017 metadata hotfixes afterwards, after you have a clean build. You can do that as well, and in the end you have to create a deployable package. This is preferably done from the build server, but maybe in the situation your build server is not in the latest release yet, if you're in a live situation. So maybe because you're sure here you have a clean dev box, because you just deployed a new one in the latest release, you could also create a deployable package for once through this dev box. But the idea is, of course, that you also later on update the build, and from then on, again, serve through the build service. In the end, you upload your deployable package to the LCS asset library. So far I've explained two steps. One is the prerequisite step, that's installing the KB in your source environment, and the second step is how to run the code upgrade service and how to have, in the end, your code fully upgraded and have a deployable package ready. So the third step is then the data upgrade, and I call it here a data upgrade test. And why I call it a test is because we are here in a live situation, that a customer is live or you have a production deployed. And in this case, the actual data upgrade or the final data upgrade will be performed by our service engineering team, our DSE team. But we cannot just rely and immediately ask to do an upgrade, ask the DSE team to do the upgrade, because we need to know if the data upgrade will run correctly. And this also has to do is because definitely if you have customizations, changes to the data model, for example, it could be that there have to be changes made to the data upgrade scripts. So for this, it's really important to run through this data upgrade test script, data upgrade test, I mean. And how you do that, you have the same development box that you used for your code upgrade service, and you copy the UAT database into this development box. Remember, the UAT database should be a recently refreshed copy of your production environment, production database. And this you can simply do by a service request, a database request, service request. So once you have the data in the dev box, then again, everything is in detail explained in a separate docs article, which the first article refers to. And this is the one that I highlight here at the top. So then you have to do the actual data upgrade. And for this, there is a specific package, the minor version data upgrade.zip file, that you have to extract from the latest binaries. And then you have to go through the upgrade of the database, which is like an iterative process. It could be that you have, from the first run, immediately a successful upgraded database. Could also be that you run into an issue that you have to solve it, and that is meant here by an iterative process. I'll explain this in a diagram in one of the next slides. There's one thing, if you bring in your database, for example, in the previous step from a multi-box with a backpack, it could be that for some reason SQL change tracking was not enabled anymore. It's important that after the upgrade is finished, if you want to check some functionality like MR, for example, that you re-enable the SQL change tracking. You also have to pay attention to the documented known issues. So in the same docs article, there is a known issue section with current issues that we found. Some issues will be hotfixed at a later stage, but at the moment you can find them in the known issues area. So before that you log a support ticket, you better also check this known issue section. It's also important to highlight that this article, which is currently published, does not take into account the upgrade of the MR database, for example, or takes into account how the blob storage will move between the old and the new production or old and new UAT environment later on in a live situation. This is covered by the service engineering team when we come to the step how to upgrade UAT and production. This is really meant here as a data upgrades test. What we do, we try to accomplish in this step 3. So let me go as well to this article. So from the general overview article, where we first had the step to upgrade your code, the next step is upgrade your data. And here you can see here is a link to the specific article, how to do the data upgrade. Now, if we come here in the data upgrade section, you see I have here a complete document, what you have to follow really step by step. So I really advise to first read through the complete document before you start the upgrade. And it's important because there are also some known issues at the bottom of the article, which I highlighted already before, is known issues that we run into. For example, duplicate key was found in the object name DBO resource setup, and others are specifically known issues at the moment where there are temporary workarounds for. So pay attention to this section as well. One thing I forgot to mention, but here is also the link how to bring in a UAT database, which is a refreshed database from prod, into your dev box. So this is specifically with a backpack operation, and there are specific docs articles for as well. Now, one thing I have to highlight, and I call it here a documentation correction, is that in the latest docs article that I just showed you, you will see that instead of the minor version data upgrade.zip file, it recommends to use the minor version data upgrade with retail zip file. And of course, each and every customer, also the customers that are not using retail, they still have in the database backend the retail schemas. So the idea of the article is, of course, that we let all customers use the same package. So even the non-retail customers use the one with retail. The issue we currently have, and I come back to that in the end of the presentation, there are some issues and even a blocking issue still at this moment with retail upgrades. For this reason, in my previous slide, I did not advise to use the minor version data upgrade with retail.zip package, but I advise still to use the minor version data upgrade.zip for the non-retail customers. The result of that is that you have an upgraded database, correctly updated, but the retail schemas, for example, the ChannelDB retail schema inside your database is not upgraded. It can still be upgraded at a later stage when you install any binaries at a later stage. So we don't see it at that moment as a blocking issue. Of course, this is a temporary solution because we try and we work really hard to have these latest blockers for retail resolved. And then, of course, the documentation is again correct, and you use always the minor version data upgrade with retail. As a result of that, if you're a non-retail customer and you don't use the package with retail, you don't have to install these KBs which are mentioned in the documentation. So I would say it's a little bit confusing at the moment. So the documentation is correct, but due to some blocking issue with retail upgrades we have at the moment, and the details are at the end of this presentation. If you want to upgrade now or in the next week, or you're currently planning to do a data upgrade and you're a non-retail customer, use the zip file without retail. Going to show one more slide, and then I will pause for maybe questions that are already came in. So this explains here the iterative process, and the reason why it's important to test the data upgrade already first in a dev environment, because if you will not do that and you run into certain issues, if you, for example, let DSE update the sandbox, or later on your prod, but first of all the test is in the sandbox, and they run into an upgrade or data upgrade issue, the upgrade will fail, and you will anyhow be forced and advised to run this upgrade test on a dev box. So, like I said, it could be that in the first iteration already you have no errors, and you just, you run the package and everything goes smoothly, no errors, okay, fine, and you don't have probably any additional code to check in because you already did that during the code upgrade process. So you can immediately continue then with the upgrade of a sandbox, and this is done by a service engineering team. But if you run into any errors, it has to be fixed because these data upgrade scripts are inside X++ code, so maybe changes have to be made, or it could be, of course, a bug in the standard code, and then, of course, this issue has to be reported in a support ticket to Microsoft. So two options here. But anyhow, if the issue is fixed in custom code or by a hotfix from Microsoft, you have to rerun the data upgrade. So I will pause here and ask Jeff, who's joined me today, if there are any questions already to highlight.
At the moment, we do not have any question, so you can go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So we have now done the code upgrade and we have done the data upgrade test. We are still in a situation where the customer is live or has production deployed. So the step 4 is actually you can ask the service engineering team to upgrade your UAT sandbox environment. If you have multiple multi-box environments, it could be you have acceptance, a premium acceptance, some training environments, you can choose yourself which is the correct one and which is the one which has the recent copy of production. It's really important to choose one which is a copy of the production, code-wise and database-wise, because the whole idea is, of course, of this is to have a valuable test of the final production upgrade. So how you do that, there is a new functionality in LCS. You go in that specific environment to the maintain section, and the same place where you normally apply updates called software deployable packages. You can also select the upgrade button. So this is new, and this will generate to our DSZ team actually an upgrade service request. A little bit more into detail for this process. First of all, some conditions. Again, they are explained in the docs article, the overview docs article that I just already showed you. It is important to highlight here is that you need to be live or have production deployed. Otherwise, these requests will be denied by the service engineering team at this moment. You can only choose one tier 2 or higher sandbox. So if you have multiple tier 2, 3, 4, 5 environments. And if you don't know what tier 2, 3, 4, or 5 is, what I just mentioned, I have placed here a link to the license guide. But if you have chosen one, then the other one, the idea is then that you just redeploy and refresh the database from the first one. So you choose one here, and then DSE will also perform, of course, the actual production upgrade. So remember that there was this menu item. So if you click on this menu item, what happens then actually is you get a second window, which you can see here in the screenshot, upgrade environment. This mentioned the target environment name and then the target version. So if you are now in 7.0, for example, then you get here several options to go, for example, to 7.1, the 1611 release, or to go to 7.2, to the July edition. So you choose here the target version, preferable, of course, the latest one. And then you have to prefer the downtime start date. Here is at the moment, you have to submit this request 5 working days prior to the upgrade downtime window. So that means that if you log the request today, you cannot select the preferred downtime start date before now and 5 working days. So you have to log this on time. The next of the last option you have here is the preferred downtime end date. So here you must allow a minimum of 8 hours downtime window between the start and the end date. So if you put a start date of, I don't know, within 5 days at 12 p.m., then the preferred downtime end date is probably for you 12 plus 8 hours, but could also be a little bit longer, because definitely for retail installations, the current minimum downtime window is 16 hours. For non-retail customers, the minimum downtime window is 8 hours. So you fill in these times, and then you can click the next button, and then you come on this screen. It is a little bit similar than the screen that you have when you do a new deployment, but with less options. So the supported version already has been chosen in the previous one. So here you probably have only one option in most cases. And then next step in the customized solution assets, it's really important that you select all your deployable packages. So the idea is that this environment can be set up with all the deployable packages slipstreamed into the initial deployment. There are a few more options, as you can see, and in the end, you have to sign off. So what happens then, we try to visualize in this diagram. So when the customer submits an upgrade request for an environment, then of course the request appears in for DSE, and then it's for the service engineering team to accept or to reject. Remember, possible reasons of rejection can be that you already asked another environment to upgrade, and that was finished successful. So the second sandbox then simply has to be redeployed, and the database refresh request has to be done from the already upgraded one to the newly deployed one. Others could be that you're not live yet or have no production deployed. Ideal, of course, these options should not appear in LCS if you're not entitled to use them. And these are also things you're working on to resolve. But this is how the current experience is. So it could be that even that you're able to lock one, that you still, your request gets rejected. But let's say you followed the recommendations and all the guidelines mentioned before. So when the DSE will approve the request, then you have to, of course, this 5 days before the downtime window starts, they will set up the separate environment. So actually a copy of the original environment, but then already in the new version with all the upgraded deployable packages. So it's important that before you go through this step, you have finished your code upgrade, but also all your ISV need to have already an upgraded version. So what we see now at this moment, for example, is that customers are willing to upgrade, but some ISV solutions are not ready yet in the new release. Of course, then you're not ready to upgrade your environments, because you as well need upgraded packages from the ISVs. So when this environment is deployed and it is a success, then at the downtime of the preferred downtime window, the one you specified, the actual downtime will start, and then the service engineering team will, of course, this is a downtime, so there's no activity going on then. The system is in maintenance mode, and the DSE will swap the new environment in and will then run the data upgrade. If the data upgrade is successful, then that means you did a good test, right, in the data upgrade test step. And then the data upgrade step and the complete upgrade can be marked as completed. If any issues happen and we exceed this window of that the customer has specified, then probably there is a swapping back to the original environment and we have an upgrade that failed. And of course, the reason then has to be investigated. And maybe, yeah, all of the cases we probably have to, if there's a data upgrade issue, we have to go back and have to troubleshoot it again on the dev box. So, but let's hope you did a good test and everything was successful. Then in the end, the customer has to sign off before then that you're officially upgraded and the old environment can be removed. Of the old, I mean then the previous one. So in terms of the downtime window, so this is exactly the same diagram. We just want to highlight that for the previous upgrades to 16.11, it was mentioned that there was a 48-hour downtime window. This has been now reduced a lot. So it's only the actual data upgrade and of course the time to sync up again the database. This is the actual downtime. So we say here minimum 8 hours for non-retail and minimum 16 hours for retail customers. Depending, of course, on the size of data and other factors, it can even go more down. And that's why the test in UAT is a very valid test, because this gives you a really good idea how the upgrade, of how much time it would take when the actual production will get upgraded. So these are the guidelines to summarize. So you have to submit these requests 5 working days prior to the upgrade, minimum of 8 hours and 16 hours for retail. You have to select all your deployable packages. Otherwise, it could also be rejected by service engineering team. And in case of any errors, it will be rolled back. And then the upgrade, of course, can be rescheduled at another time, but it's even more important to find the root cause and to go back to the dev box and check why the upgrade failed. If the upgrade is successful, the next step is then, of course, for customer partner to validate and then notify DSE when the validation is finished. At the moment, it's not mentioned in the documentation that there is within X number of days. The idea was to have like 3 working days before the environment will be, the old environment will be retired, but of course there always should be a confirmation from the customer partner before this action will take place. So the final step is then to, almost final, to upgrade the production environment. To upgrade the production is exactly the same than upgrading the UAT. The process is the same. That's also the idea, of course, because the idea is to have a valid test of the production upgrade during the UAT upgrade. So the steps that I highlight here are the same. The conditions are the same. And the guidelines are exactly the same. The last step I highlight here, but of course that could already happen simultaneously with, when you have the first multi-box upgraded successfully by DSE and you have multiple other environments and you have development boxes and build boxes. The idea for all the other environments is for the tier 1, which are typically your development boxes and build box, is to redeploy with the same release. That could be a platform update 8 or soon 9 with the July edition. And you sync your code simply with VSTS, with the upgraded codes that you have checked into VSTS. And then the database, it can vary, of course. Probably on your dev boxes, you will not want to have the full production data. You probably have a specific data set. So you might have to run one more time to the data upgrade with your specific data set for dev boxes. Could also be not that you have almost a copy of prod in your dev box. Then of course you could refresh it from another environment, and so there are several options here. Could be from the dev box you already run the upgrade on, or from the sandbox. For tier 2, 3, 4, and 5 sandboxes, so all the multi-box sandboxes, remember one is already upgraded or will be upgraded by the service engineering team, the production as well, but if you have others, then you have to redeploy them as well. So you can simply deallocate, delete, and then configure them again in the correct release. You can add the deployable package, of course, the upgraded deployable packages and ISV deployable packages. And then in the end, you can do a database refresh service request to have the database refreshed with the production database or any other tier 2 or higher environments. Are there any questions? So far, I explained the complete end-to-end process, how to upgrade to 7.2 or the July edition for live customers or customers with production deployed. Any questions, Jeff?
Yeah, so I think there's a few questions probably I want to share with all the attendees. The first one is whether they can run perform the data upgrade validation in the tier 2 sandbox. So it's doable, but we are recommend you to run the database data upgrade validation in the tier 1 or one box environment. The reason behind it is because the one box environment actually gives you more flexibility to do the data upgrade, because when you complete the code upgrade, it doesn't mean that you are not going to touch the code any longer, because we do see some case that for the customer partner, when they perform the data upgrade, they still need to go back to make some change to their code. So in that case, if you do it in a single box, then it's going to give you more flexibility to do it. For the retail blocking issue, then definitely David will come back on it. And then regarding for the upgrades, if there's the sandbox upgrade, if there any issue, then how the communication is happening. So the communication is going to happening against the server request itself. So when you submit the server request for upgrade and the upgrade happening, then you can pay attention to that server request and to receive some information back from DC team. Yeah, David.
Okay, thank you. So the second option of process is if you are now having a project ongoing and you already did coding or already have a golden configuration database and you also want to upgrade to the latest release. This is what we are seeing now at the moment happening the most, the situation, because customers want to be still in the latest version before go live and also want to upgrade. In this case, the biggest difference actually is that there is no service engineering team doing any upgrade for you, or it's all coming to the customer partner to make sure all the boxes are upgraded. So the steps are not so much difference for the rest, so I go a little bit faster. So it's the same prerequisite step. Remember, install this KB in the source environment. It's documented, but it's often forgot because it's documented in the data upgrade article, and you need to do it before you start the initial upgrade. Then the same, you have to do the code upgrade. But for the data upgrade, it's different then. It's not just a test, but it's really the final upgrade of the data. So unless you have no golden config data or any database to upgrade, you have to run to this data upgrade. And this is not a test. This is the database you want to upgrade and you want to, in the end, go live with. And then, of course, you have the same as in the previous situation, you have all the other boxes that have to be upgraded as well. So this is the same step one, the prerequisite step. I will not going to repeat that. I think it's clear now. And also for the code upgrade, there is nothing new. So this is actually a copy of the previous slide. Code upgrade is done in the exact same way. For the data upgrade, the big difference is that it's not just a test, but it's probably your final of your copy of your golden configuration database that you want to update and you bring into your dev box. And it's, so nothing else to add here. And then in the end, for all the other boxes, it's the same as the redeploy of all the other boxes. And then you restore the database you already upgraded, like your golden config database, to these boxes. And it could be a simple database restore if your golden config is in a one box and your dev boxes are also one box tier 1 environments. or maybe you have to use one time the backpack environment in one direction or the other. Both of these copy articles, how to copy from one box to multi-box, multi-box to one box, or SQL to SQL Azure, or the other way around, is very clearly documented in docs articles, and I also place the link in this presentation. But what is important is that you follow all these, every single step in these articles. We often see that you run into issues because simply one step in the article has not been executed. So I don't think there's anything else to mention about if you're not live, other than you cannot use this feature that I just showed you in LCS, this upgrade feature. So it's up to the partner and the customer to do the upgrade. Specifically for financial reporting, this is both for live, non-live customers now. It's about resetting the management reporter database to be done when upgrading the database in your Dynamics 365 for finance and operation environment. So prior to the upgrade, you export your building block groups, you export your report definitions, and put them at a safe place. And post the upgrades, you need to make sure that the SQL change tracking is back enabled, and then you just follow the steps in this article, which is at the bottom, to stop services, to do a data mart reset, to start the services, and then import again the building blocks. So I think this didn't change from the previous upgrade experience. The last part, I have two more slides which are really important related to retail. Remember at the beginning of the presentation I mentioned that we still have some issues and some additional guidance if you are a retail customer. So first of all, I can only highlight what we know today, and we have finished some retail customer successful upgrades, but that doesn't mean that there are no additional issues, right? So one thing we really know that you have to do is that before you can run the data upgrade, you have to install this KB 4036156, the one that is mentioned here. If you don't do that, then you run into an error, variant number sequence is not set. Now, when you install this KB, and this is X++ one, you will see that it has two dependencies. One is to the 4035399, which is a similar error, but the error is triggered from a different class, and you would run into this error when you use in the last step of the upgrade of a multi-box, for example, the retargeting tool, or also called the reprovisioning tool, to update the retail connection strings. The other dependency there is between these KBs is the 4035751, which is already the update 1. So the Dynamics 365 for Finance Operation Enterprise Edition application update 1 for retail. So it means that you only have to install the upper KB, and automatically you will see when you install that these two other KBs will be installed as well, because they have hard dependencies. So I think I highlighted. So if you search up this KB at the top, you can see the affected objects, but actually you can also see the dependent objects, right? And if I click on this one, you can see that this one will go through the, this one will go to the Finance and Operations Enterprise Edition Application Update 1 X++ part, and you also get the fixes for this in as well. So we definitely know that you need to have this KB installed, otherwise the data upgrade will fail. The other thing is that, of course, to run the data upgrade, you have to now definitely use the one which is in the docs article, which is the minor version data upgrade with retail.zip file. And how to obtain this package? Yeah, there are two ways. So, or you go in the target environment and you go to the environment page of that in LCS. You go to the tile, that's the one that I show here at the corner, the binary update style, which is currently today on 8. So there are already 8 binary updates, post 7.2. And you download this latest package. You do not install this package to do the upgrade, but inside this package and in the folder mentioned in the docs article, you can find the minor version data upgrade with retail zip. You have to use and follow the detailed instructions for data upgrade to run this. The other option, if there would be by some circumstances any issues with the binary update tiles, or it shows 0 or it doesn't work, hopefully that never happens, then there is the specific KB you could go through, and if you download this KB, anyhow, because this is a binary update, if you download this one, you always get the latest binary. So the result is the same. You get again the latest binary update package, and in there you use that the minor version data upgrade with retail zip. So if you have done all of this, then we are unfortunately today still blocked. There is at least one blocking issue that we are aware of, where there is a hotfix created and tested. It's today not released yet. It's not on LCS. So our advice is that if you are a retail customer and you have plans to upgrade, definitely if you have a solution architect involved, put him or her in the loop. Otherwise, of course, there is Microsoft support to reach out to, but it's really important. The message today still is that if you start running, the first to code upgrade part should be fine. At least no known issues at the moment, but during the data upgrade, even if you have followed the advice, what I mentioned in the previous step, you still need to have this hotfix. If you don't do that, you might think that you've finished successful the upgrade of the retail channel database, but this error is not always surfaced, but it is there. So it's really important that you monitor LCS issues. So you can just search this KB in issue search, and I hope it's published hopefully today, maybe tomorrow at the latest. That's my hope. And with this KB, we should be able to finish the data upgrade successful. So that's the last slide that I had for this presentation today. So Jeff, are there any more questions?
There's no open question, but there's one interesting question I want to bring up is that, someone is from the attendees asking, okay, if they request that the thing upgrade the sandbox, and after a few, validation, they probably want to give up the upgrade. I don't want to proceed the production upgrade. Then what will happen? So in this case, first of all, at the moment we didn't see a real case for this one. In case it happened, then because after the thing upgrade the sandbox for you, you need to perform the validate. Then if you send back the feedback, say, hey, upgrade failed, and the thing can help you to go back to your original environment for your sandbox. But for your dev box, for your build box, then it will be your responsibility to roll it back. Jeff, do you have anything to add for this special question?
No, I don't have anything to add. I had some issues with the connection to hear you, Jeff, but I hope it was only me. Is there any other questions, Jeff, you want to highlight?
At the moment, not.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, then I would like to thank you for attending today's Tech Talk. And of course, this was recorded, so you can find the recording back on the regular place on Infopedia. So thank you, and have a great day, evening, or morning. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Davey. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring your attention to a link that I posted in the conversation window. That's a link to a short survey for this web conference, and we ask that you please access it prior to logging out. We hope that you found today's information helpful, and if you enjoyed today's web conference or have feedback on how we can provide you with a better event, this is your chance to let us know. The survey scores are on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest score possible. And that is going to conclude today's Learning Media Web Conference. Attendees may access the web conference recording via the same registration link used to attend today's live broadcast. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters, Davey and Jeff, and thank you, audience, for logging in and joining us today.